Today we're talking about the Topsy tail method. So Topsy tail or a pull through, it's a technique that you're seeing all over the place. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about how to do it on the very top with the crown so you don't have any weird gaps or you don't make any like strange indents when you're working on this method. So someone asked me about it in one of my live tutorials, and so I thought I would go into a little more depth here. So what I'm talking about here is when you put the hair in a ponytail and then you flip it through itself, and that kind of makes like a textured look. So what can happen is if you just take the top section of hair here and say we're gonna do the Topsy tail method and kind of pull it all the way through. So like a bunch of Topsy tails in a row to make kind of a pulled out braid look. And you wanna start with the top. What I can see people doing that can happen sometimes is you go and you make your ponytail. So you have your top section here, the crown, and you put it in the ponytail and you flip it through. So let me show you what I mean by that. So you put your fingers through like this, and then you pull the hair through like so. And what happens is you get that twist, and you can pull these twists out to make kind of a textured look. So what can happen when you do it like this with no prep is you end up getting kind of a flat, I want to show you here. You get kind of a weird dip right here, you see? So even if you go through with your fingers and you pull this loose, so let's say I'm just gonna pull the twists out, which is very popular and looks really cute in a textured updo, the top will look weird, okay? So this can look really nice and fun, right? But no matter how much you pull on the top up here, this is the question that someone asked me, would I replace using bobby pins or something to do this in the very crown? And I said no, because look how bad this looks from the very top. You can't get this nice and smooth, or no matter how much pulling you pull up here, you're still gonna have kind of a gap or like a little bit of a hole compared to the lift that you can get on each side. So there's a couple ways you can combat that. The first way you can do it is through a little bit of prep in the hair before you get started. So this is my favorite way to do it. So I'm gonna go through and do a little back combing at the top of this crown area. So you can use texture spray or texture powder to help create some of that texture you want in here, and that will help it to look more even and give you more grip when you're pulling it out. But you just want to hold the hair straight up, use a little texture spray, and then do a little bit of back combing. So I'm just going to push the hair down just slightly to give it a little bit of that lift. And I'll go through and do that throughout this crown area. So basically it's the whole area that I'm going to be pulling into that Topsy tail. Now, just fun fact, I used to actually have a Topsy tail maker back when I was a young girl, because the ponytail flipped into a Topsy tail was very popular. So I had this red Topsy tail maker so I could do it myself, which I don't use anymore, but they are very handy. So you can just back comb a little bit like so. And you can use texture spray throughout here. If the hair is really slippery, if the hair is really fine, the texture spray helps. But doing this first now helps us get a nice lift on the hair to start, okay? Now, before you even put it in the ponytail, I want you to smooth this into the shape that you want. So you're gonna smooth it out. And if you wanna get a little bit of texture in here before you begin, spray some of the texture spray on top. And then you can piece it out with your fingers just to give a little bit of that texture that you want on the top before you even put it into the ponytail. Now that I've done that, you want to check the front and make sure it has the lift that you want. So you want to look at it from straight on here and make sure it has a nice even lift throughout the crown. And then we're going to go through the same method, but we're going to just hold really loose tension to keep this like this. I would actually also spray a little bit of flexible hairspray on here as well to kind of lock it in. So now that I've done that, I'm going to stretch out my rubber band or my elastic, because I don't want it to be super tight. That's the other trick, is if it's too tight, then it's hard to pull it through without messing up the top. So now I'll go even a little bit looser. I'm not holding it as close to the head either, and that helps. You can see I'm not really messing with the top. Okay. And I'm gonna just pull this from the binder before I even do the flip, just to make sure my top stays really nice and smooth. You can use your comb, you can use your fingers to make that slight opening. So when I'm making this hole here, I'm being really careful that this doesn't separate. So the part that I backcombed and I used all that texture spray is sticking together because of the prep I did. And now I'll pull the hair through. So pulling it through. And now you can see I don't have that awkward gap in the middle. So I can hold this and now I can pull this out a little bit to make this more kind of piecey and have that textured look. This is like a very tight one. So the tighter it is, the more you have to pull. But I'm just being really careful not to pull into the crown that I made here. And then you can go in with your fingers and just kind of make sure that it is loose enough and that you don't have any gaps in the middle. You can also go through with your comb and pull up like this, just into that texture and that back combing that you made. So I'm just going inside and pulling it up a little bit. And then you might still have to do some adjustments with your fingers, just pulling it loosely, depending on how tight you made it. But because you went through and you did that back combing and that prep in here, you have a much smoother looking top that is more cohesive and doesn't have that big dip in the middle. So the other thing I like to do with these is once you've created this look here, and you know, if you're gonna go through and continue on with the Topsy tail method down the back, I always like to save a little bit of hair from the front, which is what I did here, so that I can pull some curls and cover up that initial rubber band that sometimes you can see on the very first ponytail that you make. So if you save some pieces from the front, that can help to cover that up. So the third option is to not do a Topsy tail at all on this first section, but do that same method of back combing, texture spray, and just secure it into a loose ponytail, and then start doing your Topsy tails all the way down to make that kind of pulled out look. I prefer that way the best because then you're not messing with this gap at all, and you can use the hair from the front to pull over and cover up that initial elastic that you secured. But regardless of what you do, you're gonna get a little bit of a hole right here, which sometimes, you know, you can stick an accessory in, you can pull other hair in to put a curl in, something like that, like weave hair in through it. And that will help to mitigate that. But overall, you gotta do good prep on the crown area, get that crown area locked in so that once you pull this through, you don't have any of those weird gaps or bumps in the middle. And it will also help you in the long run, just as you're pulling the hair out and making it more piecey and decorative, to have more texture grip with the texture spray and the back combing in there as well. So I hope that helped you out a lot. If you like this, go ahead and like and subscribe to this channel. I try to do lots of tips like this, and I also have a link to my beginner's updo guide in the comments. So if you're new to updos and you want to learn a lot of great tips and skills that you can translate into multiple updos, that is the guide for you. So you can click on the link below and follow me on the Updo Collective. I've got a free Facebook group, and my website has a lot more resources as well, theupdocollective.com. Thank you for joining me, and I'll see you next week. Bye for now.